Hey ukulele friends, this is Sam. I'm here to talk to you guys today a little bit about some basic music theory and how memorizing a few short shapes can teach you all 572 ukulele chords without having to sit there and memorize any of them. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some very basic music theory and how it's going to help us accomplish this. You don't have to know a lot about music theory to get a lot of benefit out of music theory, especially in ukulele. The one thing that is most helpful for me and was the most helpful for me to learn was just the chromatic scale, how the notes go in order. Basically, how are the notes laid out on a piano? So if you look here, we have A through G, and we have some flats and we have some sharps. On a ukulele, on any instrument, a flat and a sharp are the same note. F sharp, actually bad example, A flat and G sharp are the same note. It just depends on if you're flattening or sharpening to get to it. That's how you define it. But it's the same note, which I've written down right here. So the order of the chromatic scale goes A flat to A, and then B flat to B. And between B and C there are no sharps and flats. And then we have C to C sharp, and then we have C sharp to D, E flat to E, and then there's no sharps and flats between E and F. F sharp, and then finally G, and then back to A flat or G sharp. It just depends on what you want to call it. Okay, so basically it goes flatter sharp, whole note, flatter sharp, whole note, whole note, flatter sharp, whole note, flatter sharp, whole note, whole note. That pattern repeats. So if you're ever stuck or lost, the easy way to remember it is there are no sharps and flats between B and C and E and F. Practice it, study this, and learn this, because this will help you figure out a whole lot of things later on down the road. So how this applies to a ukulele: every space, every fret is another half step. Okay, so a half step from A flat is A. A half step from B flat up is B. Now a half step from B is to C. Does that make sense? So every fret is a half step up. So, how is this helpful to us? Well, let's say you want to figure out where a note is along the fretboard. If you know the open string, we can figure this out. We know that our first string, our bottom string, is A. So, if I move up along the scale, if I'm already on A, the next half step up is B flat, and then B, and then C. So if we're here, this is A, B flat to B. There's no sharps and flats between B and C, so we end up at C on the third fret. And then these individual notes, G, E, and C, some of them repeat here. G, C, E, and then C again, are what make up your C major chord. Now that's helpful for figuring out what the chords are, but beyond that, it's just helpful for figuring out where or what notes are where along the fretboard. If I wanted to find F along here, we start with A, B flat, B, there's our C, C sharp to D, E flat to E, and then here would be F, right there. And you can do this with any of them. C, open C, C sharp, D, E flat, there's E, and there's F right there. So you can figure this out anywhere along the fretboard. Now, I'm going to teach you guys a little trick today. It's a little bit of magic, if you will. Instead of memorizing 572 different chord shapes and 572 different chords, I'm going to teach you guys how to take a basic chord shape and apply it anywhere up and down the fretboard using our chromatic scale. Now, all of our chords, all of the major chords, can be played in 4 basic patterns. There is not a major chord anywhere that's made up of any pattern aside from these 4. The same is true of sevenths. Sevenths have their 4 shapes or patterns on the fretboard. So let's start with sevenths because they're actually easier. And let's take one we already know. Let's take the D7 chord. Now we can take this, and because all 4 notes are being hit or being fretted, it's a scalable chord. So we can take our D7, and if I scoot it up 1/2 step, 1/2 step from D is your E flat. So this would be E flat 7. From E flat 7, we have E7. Now here's E7 as played using the D7 chord shape, and here's E7 used playing the other chord shape. It's the same chord, different pitch. We can do the same thing for G7. So if here's D7, here's E flat 7, E7, F7, F sharp 7, and finally G7, which is why it sounds so good when it's resolved with C. So if you're ever looking just for a different way to play G7 to mix it up a little bit, you can move it all the way down to there. Or you can play G7 in this pitch, G7 here, and that works anywhere up and down the fretboard. Now, that also goes for major chord shapes. So let's take one that we already know, probably the first chord shape we ever learned. Let's go with C. Now, the nut, which is this white piece that sits up here, is acting as a finger for us. So here's my C. If I wanted to play C sharp, I would move down 1/2 step and bar the first fret, still maintaining 2 spaces between, or actually 3 spaces, but 2 spaces fretting the 3rd. There's C sharp, there's D. And we already know this is an alternate way to play D. It's not too much different from here. So here's D, and then we can take that, E flat, E, F, and so on. There are 4 major chord shapes as well. That's one of them that you already know. Then you also have this shape that you would use for B flat. On the 1st fret, the 1st and 2nd string, 3rd string we go 2nd fret, 4th string we go 3rd fret. We normally just go bar and then place as if you're barring to make A. Actually, that's a different way to do it. There's your A major chord, bar the 1st fret, and now make it right below it. There's B flat. You already know B flat. From B flat, we go to B, and here's your alternate way to play C. Uh-oh. Oh, sorry, my bad. There it is, C. Again, 4 chord shapes for 7th, 4 chord shapes for major, 4 chord shapes for minor, augmented. The cool thing about diminished chords is there's only 1 chord shape for diminished chords. And it goes up in thirds. So, learn these, practice them. They will be of tremendous value to you because suddenly you don't have to memorize 572 shapes. You can figure out using, let's take the A7. There's B7. I'm sorry, that was B flat 7. B7. C7. Here's C sharp 7. Here's another way to play D7. Barring and finger on the 3rd string. Bar the fret above, finger on the 3rd string. I encourage you guys to look these up. I will put the link for the chord shapes in the comments below. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments or just ask me if you're at the Temecula Valley Ukulele Strummers group. But this is a great way to speed up your learning, to add some creativity and spice and flavor to your playing by making the same chord in a different octave. And have fun with it and save yourself some trouble, guys. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.